Imagine you have like the absolute perfect organizational flow chart.
Oh, the dream scenario.
Right. You have this charismatic CEO, a flawlessly engineered product, massive venture backing, and a culture deck that just went totally viral on LinkedIn.
Naturally.
Yeah. So on paper, it is a machine optimized for total market dominance. And yet, I mean, we see this constantly. 6 months later, the company completely falls apart.
Yeah, it just crumbles.
Exactly. The strategy was flawless, but the execution just shattered the moment any real friction hit. And, we're so heavily conditioned to believe that outstanding leadership requires this really complex framework.
Right, like a specific input or a neat little acronym.
Yeah, like a 12-step process that just spits out predictable success.
Well, it's so much easier to sell a neat 12-step system than to admit what actually drives success, isn't it? I mean, we naturally want to look for a procedural answer to leadership because, well, procedures can be bought, they can be installed.
You can just delegate a procedure.
Exactly. You can delegate it. But the reality we are unpacking today, it really strips away all of that theoretical scaffolding. When you put away the endless management theories and look at the absolute foundation of what separates, adequate managers from truly transformational leaders, you aren't left with a framework.
You're left with something else.
Yeah, you're left with a primal, raw condition.
And if you're listening to this right now, you are likely a leader or an executive, someone who is just bombarded with that exact noise daily.
Oh, relentlessly.
Right. You're told you need to master agile methodologies or cultivate this specific Myers-Briggs personality type or deploy the perfect operational cadence. But our mission in this deep dive is to bypass all that noise.
Cut right through it.
Exactly. We're going to uncover a fundamental, unvarnished truth about outstanding leadership. And more importantly, we're going to deconstruct exactly how you can manufacture and scale this specific trait within your own professional life.
Even if you feel completely disconnected from it right now.
Yes, even then. So why do we start?
Well, the premise we're exploring today doesn't mince words. It really doesn't try to package a soft, palatable corporate strategy. It holds up a mirror to the harsh realities of execution and points out one defining differentiator.
Just one.
Just one. It argues that the single prerequisite for greatness in leadership, the element that makes all those other frameworks actually function, is a visceral, undeniable hunger.
Wow.
Yeah, a burning desire.
It's a really striking choice of words, hunger, because it immediately pulls leadership out of the intellectual realm and puts it right into the physical.
It makes it biological almost.
Exactly. Let's really look at the mechanics of physical hunger for a second. When you are truly starving, you don't care about the presentation of the food.
Not at all.
You don't care about the lighting in the dining room or like the brand of the silverware. You don't even care if you look dignified while eating. You just do whatever it takes to consume calories.
Right.
So in a business context, it sounds like outstanding leadership is less about corporate polish and more about a raw survival instinct to succeed.
That survival instinct is the exact mechanism at play here. Because when a leader is operating entirely from a place of corporate polish, like when their primary focus is looking the part or, maintaining status.
Or just hitting those really comfortable quarterly targets.
Yes, exactly. When that happens, they will inevitably freeze when a true crisis hits. Polish does not sustain a leader through a massive product recall.
No, it doesn't.
Or a sudden shift in macroeconomic conditions, or a hostile boardroom takeover. The things required to achieve greatness in those moments, they're rarely glamorous.
They're usually pretty ugly.
Very. They require immense sacrifice, really uncomfortable confrontations, deeply unpopular decisions, and without that visceral hunger, that desperate need to achieve the outcome, regardless of the optics, a leader will simply stop pushing the moment the polish starts to wear off.
Man, it really forces a reevaluation of what we even classify as ambition, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, are you just interested in holding the title of a leader, or are you physically hungry for the outcomes that outstanding leadership produces?
Right, there's a massive difference.
And that distinction leads right into the underlying psychology of this drive. The core argument here hinges on a pretty profound concept. If you have a strong enough why, which is defined here as your burning desire, you can bear anyhow.
And that is the pivotal equation for anyone in a high-stakes role. Because the how of leadership is inherently brutal.
Yeah.
Life, the market, they rarely offer an easy ride on the path to greatness. The day-to-day reality of leading an organization is just full of intense friction.
Yeah, I mean, the how is walking into a room to pivot a company's entire business model when your senior engineers are looking at you telling you it's a huge mistake.
Exactly. The how is navigating the relentless pressure of payroll or dealing with the conflicting egos of a highly specialized workforce.
Or just the sheer volume of daily context switching. It's exhausting.
It really is. And the burning desire is the foundational why that makes that specific brutal friction bearable. Without it, the weight of the how just crushes you into complacency.
Okay, I have to push back hard on this, purely from the perspective of an executive trying to implement this on a Monday morning.
Sure, go for it.
Telling seasoned professionals to, find their why is arguably the most exhausted cliche in modern corporate culture.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. It's printed on motivational posters in break rooms. It's the subject of endless mandatory HR seminars that most executives just completely tune out.
They're checking their emails under the desk.
Exactly. So how does framing this why as a burning desire elevate it from a sterile corporate mission statement to an actual unshakable psychological anchor? Because right now, to be honest, it sounds like we are just dressing up a cliche in more intense vocabulary.
I get that. And the cynicism toward corporate cliches is completely justified, but it actually proves the point. We've become numb to the concept of a why, precisely because we've intellectualized it.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, a standard corporate mission statement, a typical why, was constructed in a boardroom by committee, right?
Yeah, to sound good.
It's designed to sound appealing to shareholders. It looks good on a website. It's an external accessory. But look at the distinction being made in the source material. Equating the why directly with a burning desire internalizes it.
Ah, I see.
It moves it from the intellect to the nervous system. A corporate cliche is saying, we strive to be the premier provider of logistics software.
Very standard.
Right. But a burning desire is a leader's internal, undeniable need to see that software fundamentally alter global supply chains to the point where failing to achieve that vision feels like a personal physiological starvation.
Wow. So a mission statement is for public relations, but a burning desire is an internal thermostat.
That's a perfect way to put it. It regulates your behavior when nobody is watching, and more importantly, when the conditions are terrible.
So if we accept that this intense primal internal thermostat is a strict requirement to survive the friction of leadership, it introduces a really urgent, pragmatic problem. What if a professional is listening to this right now? They're managing a team of 50 people, executing their responsibilities reasonably well.
Sure. Doing an okay job.
Yeah, doing okay. But they realize they simply do not feel that all-consuming burning desire. They have ambition, sure, but they don't have hunger. Is this a biological lottery? Like, are you either born with this fire or are you just destined to be a mediocre manager forever?
And that is the most practical insight we can extract from this deep dive. It's the complete demystification of that exact problem.
So you don't have to be born with it.
No, not at all. You do not have to be born with it. The blueprint for creating this hunger from scratch is actually incredibly methodical. You manufacture it by starting small, developing it slowly, and making great leadership into a daily habit.
Wait.
You actively construct the condition of hunger through deliberate, repeated action.
That feels like a massive inherent contradiction.
How?
Well, the premise started by demanding a visceral, primal, burning desire, this intense emotion that allows a leader to bear brutal corporate realities. But the proposed solution to getting there is to, start small and build a mundane habit.
I hear you.
We are trying to reconcile the fierce, dramatic reality of starvation with the cold, administrative reality of building a daily routine. How does ticking off small habits generate a burning, primal drive?
It sounds totally contradictory until you examine how human behavioral psychology and neuroplasticity actually work.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, a burning desire isn't summoned through willpower. You can't just decide to have it. It's generated through the momentum of competence.
Momentum of competence.
Yeah. Think about a complex system, like taking over an underperforming, complacent division. You don't manufacture a burning desire to revolutionize the division overnight. The friction of trying to do that all at once will just burn you out immediately.
Right, you'll just hit a wall.
Exactly. Instead, you start small. You build a habit out of the micro actions of exceptional leadership.
Walk us through what that actually looks like on a granular level. If I'm, say, a newly appointed director trying to engineer this hunger, what is the micro action?
It means establishing a baseline of absolute excellence in the mundane operational details. It is the habit of refusing to accept vague answers during a Tuesday morning stand-up.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's the habit of systematically preparing for every single one-on-one meeting rather than just winging it. It's deciding to have that slightly uncomfortable feedback conversation about a poorly formatted financial report and doing it with perfect clarity and empathy rather than just fixing the report yourself at 8 p.m.
Right, which is what so many managers default to.
because it's easier in the moment. But when you do this over and over, you're doing two things. First, you're mastering the fundamentals. Second, and more importantly, you're rewiring your brain's dopamine loop.
Oh.
As you build this habit, you begin to experience the tangible results of high standards. Your team becomes sharper. The data becomes more reliable. The friction decreases.
And I imagine once you experience that level of operational clarity, anything less just becomes intolerable.
Exactly. Competence brings a very low tolerance for incompetence. By turning these small, rigorous actions into a daily habit, you are laying the architectural foundation.
So you aren't just sitting around waiting for a mystical lightning bolt of inspiration to strike you with purpose.
No, you're deliberately constructing an environment where mediocrity causes you psychological discomfort. And that discomfort is the first spark of the hunger.
That makes so much sense. But the habit is just the entry point, right? It's the baseline. Because the trajectory mapped out here makes it clear that if a small leadership habit is established, it cannot remain static if it's going to transform into a true burning desire.
Right.
It must escalate.
The escalation is the mechanism of transformation. The exact timeline for practical application moves in four distinct phases. Start small, form a habit, continually raise the standard, and ultimately reach a point of obsession. Yes, you create the habit becomes automatic, and then you deliberately introduce new friction by setting a higher standard. That constant escalation is what ultimately fuels the burning desire.
Let's analyze that specific progression.
Yeah.
Habit to standard to obsession. Because in modern business culture, the word obsession carries a tremendous amount of negative baggage.
Oh, massive amounts.
Right. We immediately associate an obsessed executive with toxic work environments, severe burnout, and a culture that demands emails be answered at 3 in the morning. So how do we safely channel this methodology, setting progressively higher standards, into a productive leadership obsession rather than a destructive, chaotic one?
That distinction requires looking really closely at the nature of the standards being set. The progression dictates setting higher and higher standards for leadership capability, not necessarily demanding a higher volume of chaotic output from yourself or your team.
Okay, that's a crucial difference.
It is. A toxic obsession is an obsession with activity. A productive obsession is an obsession with efficacy. The friction that generates real leadership hunger comes from raising the bar on the quality of the outcome.
So it's an internal metric of excellence versus an external metric of panic.
Yes.
Like, a toxic leader raises the standard by demanding everyone work weekends. But a hungry leader raises the standard by optimizing the workflow so deeply that nobody has to work weekends, but the output still doubles.
Precisely. When you turn a high level of leadership into a habit, you master that specific level of performance. It ceases to be difficult. And if you stay at that level, the fire dies down. You just become a capable but complacent manager.
You lose the hunger.
Exactly. To cultivate that burning desire, you have to continually move the goalposts on your own competence.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, if your habit is running highly efficient, 30-minute operational meetings, your new higher standard might be running meetings where you speak for only 5 minutes and your team drives the entire strategic agenda.
Wow, yeah.
And once you master the coaching required to make that happen, your next standard might be developing 2 of those team members to lead cross-functional initiatives across entirely different departments.
So the obsession is with continuous incremental elevation. It is a relentless dissatisfaction with the status quo, directed inward at your own capacity to lead rather than directed outward as punishment toward your employees.
That internal friction is the ultimate blueprint for scaling executive capacity. Hunger isn't created by attending a leadership retreat.
Or watching a motivational keynote.
No. It's created by the sheer velocity of your own growth. You build the baseline habit, you raise the standard, you endure the friction of mastering that new standard, and the absolute moment it becomes comfortable, you raise it again.
You never settle.
Never. The momentum of that cycle, the compounding effect of your own expanding capability, it ignites into a productive obsession. You engineer your own evolution. You become the kind of leader who doesn't just survive brutal market conditions, but actually thrives on the complexity.
Because solving complex problems feeds the hunger you have methodically built.
Exactly.
We started this deep dive by throwing out the imaginary, perfect organizational flowchart. We bypassed the surface level management theories and the myths of innate charisma to isolate the raw, primal necessity of hunger.
And the reality is uncompromising.
It is. Outstanding leadership requires a visceral drive to achieve greatness.
We explored the underlying mechanics of that drive, too. Specifically, how an internal physiological why is the only anchor heavy enough to hold a leader steady through the inherently brutal how of executive execution.
Right. A corporate mission statement won't survive a crisis, but a burning desire will.
Absolutely.
And we broke down the actual systemic process of manufacturing that drive from scratch. It doesn't require a biological lottery.
Right.
It requires the discipline to start with small, rigorous habits, to let competence breed a deep intolerance for mediocrity, and to scale those habits into a productive obsession by relentlessly moving the goalposts on your own standards of excellence.
The ultimate takeaway here for any professional navigating these waters is one of extreme authoritative accountability.
Accountability.
Yes, because the market will not give you an easy ride. Your competitors will not give you an easy ride.
Yeah.
But you do not need them to.
No, you don't.
Because you now possess the exact methodical blueprint to systematically build the hunger required to thrive in those conditions. You are entirely in control of setting the standard, which means you are entirely in control of the depth of your own desire.
Which leaves a pretty profound question for you to consider as you step back into your role today. If you follow this blueprint, if you build the habit, endure the friction of raising your own standards, and successfully engineer this productive obsession within yourself, you will undoubtedly scale your own personal greatness.
Without a doubt.
But transformational leadership is never solitary. It is inherently about output through others. So, at what exact point does your standard become so high and your operational capacity so optimized that your hunger must fundamentally shift?
Oh, that's the real question.
Right. At what point do you transition from manufacturing your own burning desire to mastering the complex psychology required to engineer that exact same primal hunger within every single person you lead? Because the moment your obsession successfully sparks theirs, you are no longer just managing a business. You have built an unstoppable force.